It's the heart of summer travel season, and plenty of Utahns are on the roads pulling heavy loads.
But if you don't properly secure that trailer, it can become deadly. Runaway rocket on wheels. News specialist Jed Boal has a story tonight that may have you thinking twice the next time you tow. Jed?
Yeah, Dave, every time you tow your trailer, there are several safety essentials that you need to follow. First of all, the ball has to be the right size, the ball that you attach to your truck or your SUV. And this pin, as you'll see in just a few moments, can mean the difference between life and death. Summer season is towing season. Thousands of boats, RVs, and trailers at high speeds race across America's highways. Safety is a matter of life and death. It was a beautiful weekend in rural Minnesota. Jeremy Cox had taken his 2 children to the library. A trailer being towed by a pickup approached.
This was tough.
The runaway trailer rammed the driver's side. Jeremy Cox died instantly. His beautiful 3-year-old daughter, Izzy, seated behind her dad in a car seat, also died that day. 11-month-old Liam miraculously survived.
And I just fell to the ground.
Christy Cox soon got the news.
All the air just left me. My world just shattered.
This should never have happened.
That trailer's hitch was missing a 75-cent clip.
You want to make sure that this pins in. If you don't, the trailer can...
A clip just like this one. Utah Highway Patrol Officer Bryce Ivy sees too many trailers improperly equipped.
It's very important to take those few extra seconds just to make sure that everything's attached properly. It could save someone's life.
For $300, we bought this trailer on KSL.com. It's like thousands of others on Utah roads.
I see several things that are wrong.
Trooper Ivy has concerns.
There's a hole right here that's designed to have a locking pin put into place. And
no locking device on the hitch.
If it hits enough force, this really
long and loose electrical wiring.
All wrapped around.
And there's only one safety chain, poorly secured by a small nut.
Also, there's not a real big difference in between the size of the chain link here and the size of that bolt to keep it from pulling through under force.
So we hooked up a different chain. Now, to prove the importance of this chain, I'm going to do something that you would never do. I'm going to intentionally disable this latch. We're on a closed course track with the help of Highway Patrol, and our trailer is getting up to a modest speed.
And see what happens to the trailer, see if my trailer hangs on.
A little bump and the trailer lifts. At just 40 miles an hour, all that violence, pulling not a 5,000-pound boat, but a small trailer.
Wow, that was unsettling.
But the chains do their job. What if they hadn't been there? We took our trailer to Rocky Mountain Raceway, this time without chains. Once the trailer detaches, the driver is powerless to stop it. It's easy to imagine the devastation.
Oh, there's Daddy and Izzy.
The kind of devastation
Who is a firefighter?
Daddy.
a Minnesota mom has to live with
We'll see you
every
later,
day.
and we love you.
And Trooper Ivy tells me that in just the last month, he's seen a couple of trailers come unhitched because the ball was not the right size and because they didn't have this pin in place. Fortunately, nobody was hurt in either of those accidents. Guys?
Jed, does UHP have any other recommendations?
You know, they sure do, Dave. The chains underneath, it's only required by law to have one of these chains, but they recommend that you have two. You can even provide greater security if you cross those chains. So that's something else to keep in mind when you head out on the road, and you want to make sure that the load that you're towing is safe.
Right. Just a little bit of time can prevent those kinds of tragedies. Thanks, Jed.
He wasn't trying to do any harm. You know, he just fell asleep, and 3 people were killed.
She lost her mother, a brother, and a sister in a car crash just 6 years ago. Well, now she shares a safety message for anyone who would risk driving while drowsy. State numbers show drowsy driving kills dozens of people on our roads every single year. On the road to zero fatalities, news specialist Jed Boal shares a story of one woman who knows the true cost of dozing off behind the wheel.
I'm getting ready for a triple funeral. Pure fear pulses through my heart, my lungs, and my mind.
Rachel Howard Kunzler knows the grief of losing 3 family members at once.
Let your soul live in the moments, because life isn't about the journey. It's about the moments that make up our lives.
She writes to cope with the cascade of emotions that has swept over her since the car crash.
Hope is something that everybody needs.
And something she has leaned on ever since this crash on Highway 89 in Layton, June 28, 2007. A driver in a pickup truck nodded off and crossed into the path of their car.
We don't think about what a huge impact it could have, worst case scenario.
Her mother, Janine, and her 11-year-old brother, Matthew, died at the scene. 8-year-old Esther died later at the hospital. Rachel and her younger brother, Caleb, survived. Their father was not in the car.
It's important to take this terrible thing and keep using it for something good. Try to help other people with it.
As she and her husband prepare for their first child, Rachel fears that too many of us do not recognize when we are not alert enough to drive.
The guy that hit us, he just fell asleep.
UDOT estimates that each year 32 people are killed on our roads as a result of drowsy driving, and the actual number is probably higher because fatigue is hard to identify in crash fatalities, and all other causes must be ruled out.
It's really difficult to pinpoint drowsy driving unless you have an eyewitness report, usually from the driver or someone else in the car.
So plan ahead, especially if you're driving a long distance. Driving gets riskier if you're getting less than 6 hours of sleep, and take a break every 2 hours.
If you start experiencing the heavy eyelids, the difficulty in focusing, get off the road. It's not worth killing yourself or someone else.
Rachel still sheds tears for her family, but today they're tears of healing. Jed Boal, KSL 5 News.
Powerful story there. Rachel plans to share her story through Zero Fatalities in discussions with groups throughout the state.
That's my biggest regret, is taking fathers away from families.
Reggie Shaw doesn't even remember what the text message was about, but every day he remembers the 2 men he killed while texting and driving. Shaw was one of the first in the country to face serious consequences for killing another driver while texting behind the wheel.
And now his powerful safety message reaches people all around the world. News specialist Jed Boal sharing his story on the road to Zero Fatalities. Jed?
Yeah, Reggie Shaw was texting while driving 7 years ago in Cache County when he clipped a car and ended up killing 2 men. Now his story is part of a powerful documentary commissioned by AT&T. Reggie Shaw makes no excuses for his actions that killed 2 fathers September 22nd, 2006.
On my way to work, I'm texting and reading messages, and I go across the center line and I hit another car.
Director Werner Herzog portrays Shaw's story and 3 others in the documentary From One Second to the Next.
The 2 people that were killed were inside the blue car.
Shaw says that crash was preventable. If he had put his phone away, those men would be alive.
While I was driving, I decided that texting and driving was more important to me than those 2 men were to their families.
Shaw was sentenced to share his message with young drivers. Today, he's done with that sentence, but he still tells his story across the country so others won't relive it.
It's not worth it. It's not worth the pain and the harm that you'll cause yourself or someone else.
When Shaw sees other motorists out here on the road texting while driving, it scares him. And when he reads about other fatalities involving texting, it hurts him inside.
It should have been obvious to me then how dangerous it was, and it should be obvious to people now how dangerous it is.
Also in the documentary, the daughter of one of his victims who found a way to forgive Shaw. That friendship, he says, helps him better understand what those families endure every day.
The pain and the heartache and the trials that come on a regular basis, and I caused that.
Shaw says that he'll continue to volunteer, sharing his message with young drivers here in Utah and across the country. So far, that video, that documentary online has more than 1 million views, and by nearly all accounts, it's very riveting. We put a link to that on KSL.com. Mike?
Yeah, Jed, we've done so many stories on this in the past, and you wonder if it's really having an effect. I can't go a day without driving and seeing someone texting and driving.
Yeah, you certainly see a lot more drivers out there texting while driving. That's why he believes that his message is just as important today, if not so more important today than it was when he had his crash 7 years ago.
Hopefully it has an effect. All right, Jed Boal live for us this evening. Jed, thank you.